Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Key Dynamics podcast. I'm Dustin, and I'm here with my friend Kurt.
Yes, I'm Kurt. Yes, thank you. Welcome to the show.
I think I see what you did there, and I'm glad you did it because it actually reminds me. I was going to bring up that we are coming to you live right now, or recorded from different sides of the country, basically. So what I think Kurt might have just done there was he was trying to jump ahead of what would have looked like the awkward delay. Did I throw you off there a little bit? Did I throw you off?
No, it's okay. I did. I tried to get ahead of it so that the latency would be kind of minimalized. But I am Kurt regardless, and I'm getting ahead of myself already. So I'm just excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited. And I'm glad. I did want to get that out of the way, though, just to give a bit of context, that we're not at the same place, let alone even in the same province, barely in the same country, it feels like.
Yeah, we're definitely going pretty much coast to coast here. So forgive any lag or latency issues. But that being said, if I may, I kind of just want to launch right in. We have basically a finale to our trilogy now of cool tastes in music. And we've been kind of exploring the ideas behind what makes music cool. Not so much what makes the music itself cool, but more focusing on, tastes, taste making, cool tastes in music that are determined by peer pressure or by social influences or just by the cultural importance of the music. And I think we had a couple decent segments on it, but I wanted to kind of like run aground for a moment here and discuss almost one act in particular. And that's Radiohead. And I think, Dustin, you kind of said something to me off the air a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago, that actually kind of resonated with me really, really strongly when I was listening to Radiohead, researching for this, because I realized that when I got into Radiohead or when I was trying to first get into Radiohead, I wasn't prepared for it. And I think you very acutely said that there's some music that you're just not prepared for, and I wasn't prepared for it at the time in high school as a young man. I had limited exposure to Radiohead, and that was Creep, and that was kind of this song here. And the first two albums were like very rock oriented, and they had a place in rock radio, modern rock radio. And then they kind of went off and they did something totally unique and different, and that's where I kind of lost them. And it's unfortunate because that's where I kind of came into them. Everybody was obsessed with OK Computer. Everybody was obsessed with Kid A. Did it have these kind of weird ulterior kind of like motives behind the lyrics? Did it really sync up to these classic horror movies like all the hipsters said it did? Mm-hmm. The thing that for me was kind of troubling. It wasn't even the gatekeeping that kind of surrounded it, because there was that like aura of too cool for you when I spoke to a lot of people about Radiohead, but it was the fact that their music was becoming truly inaccessible. OK Computer had, it had songs that were like built for mainstream rock airplay, Karma Police and whatnot, but like, they really got into kind of a side of rock music that hadn't really been brought to the mainstream at that point. And that was like some really, really alternative, truly experimental stuff. And I just simply was not prepared for it at the time. Now I feel better prepared for it. And I have the benefit of hindsight to kind of like gift me that. Mm-hmm. But man, at the time, it was one of those cases where I was like, oh, is this what's cool? Because maybe I don't have good taste in music. I'm having a lot of trouble getting into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually sort of thought that with Radiohead as well. Other people liking it that I thought were very cool and who also gave me some music to listen to that was very, very cool. That genuinely is cool. I mean, stuff I still listen to that wasn't just like a one-off thing. And yeah, Radiohead I couldn't get into. How into Radiohead are you now, though? Because you seem to be more into them. How into them are you?
I'm very into Radiohead to the point where I feel like I'm putting up with some shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just kind of sitting back and taking it as they're layering on maybe unnecessary and self-indulgent experimental music. But I am kind of like more receptive to it because I kind of know the end justifies the means, where I had a lot of difficulty kind of in my teenage years getting into the most recent output, which was Kid A at the time. I think it was 2000. now I can kind of sit back and I can kind of like look at the project as a whole, and I can kind of cherry pick obviously things I like out of it. But when you're sitting down, and this is, you know, you have to remember, this is 20 years before, you know, we had the advent of being able to select any songs you wanted, like on the fly. This is the mid 90s to late 90s. You know, we didn't have streaming. You had to kind of like invest in a CD. You had to buy the tape or the CD to really get it. And then if you didn't like it in the first few songs, or if you tried to listen through and you didn't like it the first couple of times, it was kind of a big weight on your shoulders, because now, you know, I've spent like $20 or $30 on the CD. Maybe I don't get it, but I just know I don't like it. So that's kind of changed for me now. And again, I think I mentioned, you know, the end justifies the means. That's so much the truth with Radiohead, because you see this crazy experimentation that took place over decades, and then they come to this more refined sound that is like truly kind of a beautiful bridging between like just good rock music and really experimental kind of out there stuff. There are points in Radiohead's career lately, I don't know. You could tell me Johnny Greenwood was still in the band, but I'd be hard pressed to say that there was actually like a band of live musicians playing behind a lot of the music they make. But that's okay, because I think, you know, they're all involved in the composition and the songwriting. But one of my favorite songs of all time, late era Radiohead, well, comparatively, 2008 was All I Need from In Rainbows. In Rainbows was, I think, probably not just for the timing for me as kind of like a young adult, you know, like getting into my 20s and kind of actually like understanding that music, but I think it was a big step for them too, because they'd finally made that bridge. They'd not quite exactly like found the dichotomy between like Pablo Honey and like the hard rock of the Bends, and the later weird glitchy experimentation of Kid A and Hail to the Thief. But they'd taken enough from each that they'd just been able to make this beautiful, beautiful amalgam. And like it shows like basically like the creative learning of a band over a couple of decades kind of compounded into something beautiful and minimalist. And this is like a perfect example of less is more, because they've been able to take just everything that made all those phases of them good into one kind of perfect outing.
So before we get too much into In Rainbows, we were just listening to what was off of Kid A. That was, what was that? Everything in the Right Place I was just playing? Everything in its right place?
Everything in its right place, yeah. That was probably my favorite song off that album. And I think it had a couple mainstream soundtrack appearances going back to our last discussion. But yeah, that's kind of like the Radiohead, I think, that began really truly experimenting with electronic, and for a good period there, they were, like I said, heavily electronic, to the point where outside of Greenwood's influence in his songwriting, I'm not really sure where the live band actually fit into it.
Right.
So they've kind of migrated back to like a fuller exposure of musicians now, but it sounded staunchly electronic there for a little while.
So what we were just listening to is off of Kid Amnesia, or Kid A Amnesia. Is that, it is a re-release?
So it was so basically they re-released Kid A with its companion. So about a year after Kid A, they released the truly peak experimental variation of Radiohead, which was their live show had morphed into this like really kind of like crazy out there ambient, noisy, progressive kind of sound. It's like ostensibly like bringing glitch music to the mainstream, but yeah, no, they recently re-released them in a package, as they do these days, celebrating anniversaries that we're not so thrilled to hear, but are celebrating the remastered music from nonetheless. So Kid Amnesia is, I believe, the Cross Deluxe edition from Kid A, and the Amnesiac album, which was a full live album from Radiohead, and really not a great place to start, no matter what your interest in Radiohead is, because it was pretty out there.
Did you
still cool though?
Did you see the comment that had come up in chat there?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
They had said interesting points. I was never into them when they were at their peak, yet I know the words to a lot of their songs. Sometimes to my surprise, the radio era of their day still has their imprints. And it's PS, total rando, dust in your hat. You guys are no longer Calgary versus Toronto. Much of my last 10, 15 years.
Well, yeah, we're not going to address the hockey right now, but yeah, no, Radiohead at their peak, I think they peaked 2 or 3 times, and yeah, their first peak was probably the one that resonates most with people. To this day, you still see like soundtracks doing those creepy kid choir covers of Creep and whatnot. I'm pretty sure, yeah, the Batman promotion got some Ben singles airplay. High and Dry, you know, that song was fucking huge for a while. And then by the time I was getting into Radiohead in high school, people had forgotten about that shit because Radiohead was like a bona fide kind of weirdo band, but they were for cool people. And I was not prepared at the time for anything past OK Computer. There was some stuff on there that was already starting to like bridge the gap from mainstream rock into truly experimental weirdness. And by Kid A, they just gone full blown weirdness.
Well, I just have to bring this up. Speaking of weird, hold on, I'm just waiting for this ad to go past on YouTube here.
No, Radiohead was weird, and they still remain pretty weird. They've gotten probably, like I said, more refined in their sound, but their solo exploits. Johnny Greenwood's probably gone towards like the mainstream with his soundtrack work, but Tom York is weird as hell, still to this day.
Man, do you know what we're watching right now? Cue this up, Kurt, if you know what we're watching.
Oh no. Yeah, this is Dave cool? Chappelle. Yeah. So apparently this is cool. This is a tough one for me to swallow. I remember when we watched this together for the first time. This is basically, I think, where Creep has become one of those things like the Slayer logo, and it's almost become bigger than the band themselves. Like I said, I think a few moments ago, you're probably familiar with like movie trailers, like Social Network had that really creepy kids choir. Yeah. You have covers of the song that are so, I don't know, ingrained in mainstream, that are so commercialized now that people remember this song probably more than they remember the name Radiohead. Okay. And then, yeah, when you start to play Radiohead from 2000 onwards, people are like, what the fuck is this?
Well, I'm not even looking at it that way. The way I'm looking at this and wondering, is this cool? Is like, is he joking? Like, or is it, I don't know how this is supposed to be, or is it just doing it out of like it was like a tribute? Like when I first saw it, I thought one of the members of Radiohead had just died or something, so they were doing something nice for him, or it was a joke. Like what else? What would it be? I don't know.
I actually agree with that. It's kind of confusing. The thing that like kind of cements it in its continued weirdness. This is actually perfect for Radiohead. You could take the least weird song of Radiohead and somehow public domain has made it weird, just like current Radiohead. They sing it with such sincerity, and that seems to be where I see a lot of these covers. They don't seem to be based in parody. They don't seem to be goofy like some of the music we'll get into. These covers specifically seem truly sincere. So you got to wonder what the mentality was. And Dave Chappelle is such an odd one too to cover that song. You do not associate Dave Chappelle with Radiohead or Creep, especially considering his music. The Chappelle Show, I will give credit to Dave Chappelle. The Chappelle Show had some crazy skits back in the early 2000s. They opened my eyes to a lot of like cool backpack hip hop and stuff like that. So I'll give him credit where credit's due. He helped me into some good rap music, but
he wasn't the rapper, though, right?
No. He was
that's what I meant. Dave Chappelle with like music, like being on stage performing.
And there's a reason he shouldn't be. I mean, we just heard him sing. No offense to Dave, I love him, but yeah, but that's one of those songs too you can get away with. It's almost so cool. You could do like karaoke and sing like garbage. It's basically like Nine Inch Nails' Hurt, you know. As long as you sing it with sincerity, people will like appreciate it. You know, and everybody says Johnny Cash owns that version now. Why? It's because he was a decrepit old man singing it, just because it fit the motif.
Yep.
Maybe it fits the motif. You know, Dave Chappelle, maybe he's truly that surly, curmudgeonly motherfucker. So maybe Creep really does resonate inside of him, and you got to look at it that way. But you know, it was cool enough for him to try to cover, and I think he was doing it with sincerity.
I don't know if I want to go here, but how different would it be if Chris D'Elia got up on stage with the Foo Fighters and sang Creep?
Oh God, yeah. You know what? We could go into a lot of strange covers. Maybe we should use this as our jumping off point. And,
Okay.
go into cover music because we've been itching at this topic for a little while now, and I'm very excited to get into covers. I know you mentioned on a previous show, do you enjoy tribute bands and cover bands? Well, no. But there are certainly instances where I believe the covered material far exceeds the quality of the original material.
Oh, yeah. And other covers.
We got a couple songs on deck, yeah.
And other covers will taint the original.
Oh boy, will they ever, yes. It's I think we try not to think of like the Marilyn Manson versions of every fucking 80s synth song. Thanks, Manson. But yeah, this, I was very surprised to learn that this, not only not an original, but a cover of a cover. This has been done a few times before Soft Cell got their hands on it. And that's okay because they totally own the song.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, knowing that it's a cover of a cover, I don't care. Yes. They made this song their own.
Yeah. Have you listened to the previous versions?
I haven't. They just don't hold a candle to it. I'm not sure if that's because, this is so ingrained in my memory that like this is the original and this is the one that's important to me. Or if I don't have a bias and I'm able to kind of judge it objectively and say that the other versions just weren't as good. But yeah, this is without a doubt 100% probably top 3 covers of all time that just erase the songs that came before them.
Well, speaking of erasing, this is one that I actually was young enough to hear as a kid, and I heard it before the original. And I don't know, if I didn't hear this one before the original, I think it would have erased the original for me, just with power, and like it would have just brute forced it right out of my mind. This is Limp Bizkit playing Faith.
Yes. Yeah. No. And you know what? Not to shit on George Michael, but we could all do with Wham being maybe brute forced out of our memories. This is a great example of a cover that's probably even like not to us. I think it would be different because we kind of like we're in tune at least with new wave and 80s to a point where like even the like traditional pop of the 80s, like that still holds a certain cemented place in our minds. So you can't forget
to the listener that didn't think Limp Bizkit was brute forcing them out, just give it a bit of time.
Yeah, the 90s Woodstock grunge and the phenomenon of nu metal. Yeah, basically bye Wham.
Yeah.
That's a really good pick. Damn, I had actually forgotten about that one, and I shouldn't have, because it's amazing how many people I still run into. If they know Limp Bizkit, they know Faith, and a lot of people curiously think that's an original. So
yeah,
I've spoken to a couple of people about that, even at Limp Bizkit shows recently, which kind of, I mean, I guess I get it. I'm sure it was definitely bigger for the 3 decades following its release. I mean, I haven't really heard the Wham version at all. I've heard the Limp Bizkit Faith in the last couple decades, but I really don't hear George Michael at all. Even around the time of his passing, it was, Wake Me Up Before You Go, a couple other jams, but
yeah, but nothing like that. And even like
no,
and even if you did hear the other version before, it was like on the radio, and it's like aware of it in like a grocery store. Nothing that ever made you turn your ear when that was put on the radio. It was like, oh
yeah,
good morning.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a band doing a good job of like taking a song and kind of shaking it out and seeing what the pieces are and putting it back together for themselves. And I really, really love that. Like on one hand, you got like No Doubt doing that Talk cover, which is essentially just doing the exact same thing over again, but doing it, with maybe more pop, doing it a little snappier, making sure the production is like top notch, super clean, but you essentially still have all the elements of the original song in their correct order and kind of delivered almost as you heard them the first time.
Yeah.
So I have absolutely no problem with this because I do think it just sounds good. Like I like the fact that, didn't have any attachment to the original. So when I hear this, I'm kind of naturally inclined to go with the song that does pop a little bit more to me.
And this is a very good example of what we were talking about on the last podcast when I said that I really like older 80s music, and then I found that it was sometimes more just the sound of the instruments or what I was hearing, maybe not the songwriting. And then how with synthwave, I liked it was like the modernized kind of version of it. This is kind of that. Yeah. A really good example of that.
Yeah, it's a shame too, because I think this one probably overshadows a lot of actual good No Doubt songs too. That's always a shame. I hate to say that, but yeah, there's a lot of good No Doubt music out there that probably doesn't get played in favor of the Talk Talk cover. And nothing against Talk Talk, but I mean, that song is kind of a product of its generation. So I would prefer if people played like Hella Good, but that's personal preference to me. But yeah, if we're talking about, going back to Limp Bizkit for a moment, taking songs and kind of like disassembling them and reconstructing them for the purpose of like really kind of making that cover your own, and maybe not even trying to do an interpretive take on it, but just something that's natural and to you. Because Limp Bizkit did a great job. That was earlier in their career, but I have trouble with those people that say, oh, I thought that was originally a Limp Bizkit track, because there's nothing about that song that actually like lends itself to being Limp Bizkit-ish, especially with the benefit of hindsight again. Those lyrics, the music, it's like half of it's really not there. But I wanted to go to one you said. This is a song that I think kind of skirts the definition of either. So it's not disassembling, reassembling for purpose. It's not giving verbatim back what they got. But you brought up a song just kind of in our warm-up that really kind of stuck with me. And I've been thinking about it for the last 20 minutes, and that's the David Bowie cover, I'm Afraid of Americans. I'm Afraid of Americans was a song originally born of a collaboration between Trent Reznor, who was at the time playing as and still is, but fully as Nine Inch Nails. And I think David Bowie was like way beyond just into them. He really had a thing for Trent, really had a thing for the band, because took them on tour and did some work with them that ostensibly led to an industrial collaboration that maybe wasn't fully formed. Mm-hmm. And I love this cover because this sounds assured, sounds confident. This sounds like maybe the vision that Bowie had 25 years ago, back in 95, that he couldn't actually maybe complete even then. The technology lends itself to this sound now for sure.
Oh, yes.
It sounds less mismatched and less experimental. And now that I'm hearing the song in like a less experimental phase, without the weird little glitches and fun little things that they were probably throwing together in the studio, this sounds like a fully formed rock song. And it's got a message still. It hasn't shaved the message at all, but it's just got something cohesive to it. Whereas the other felt kind of maybe not bloated, but I think it was like clearly evidenced by the fact that they released like 5 different versions, including a couple different singles that maybe they weren't totally in agreement on how the original should sound. This sounds like somebody who's kind of taken that all and streamlined it and has given you the original product, but just done it better, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm. And also now the consumer is able to appreciate this kind of music in a different way, because when it was first coming out and you're hearing something like this on much smaller speakers or your Walkman or whatever it was, you weren't, it was kind of almost more annoying to listen to because some of the sounds almost aren't pleasing, but mixed with that sub bass and the way it's all mixed together make it work. Because you see that sound that was just there, mm-hmm. that annoying sound, like almost instead of a guitar, they have this little thing. Yeah. So I think, technology, even just for the consumer, is making it more appealing.
Yeah, and we got a comment that I actually kind of puts a point on what you're saying very well. There's people who don't know the original music that will only learn about it through new artists and stuff like that. And yeah, I think that's part of it. I think covers are inherently, no matter what. Okay, so like there are instances where it's clearly a cash grab or whatnot. You see a whole lot of like big mainstream artists do very peculiar covers for say soundtracks for movies or TV or whatnot that are definitely out of their wheelhouse. But for the most part, I think it's where do these bands take their influence from? So I particularly like hearing the disassembled and reassembled versions, because those are the musicians to me that sound like they're not only trying to show you their influence through the music they're covering, but they're kind of like they're showing that they understand it too, and whether they intend to or not. It's kind of cool to see an artist kind of like really get into the meat and potatoes of what they liked and kind of repurpose it and kind of show it off. And I know they're doing it for their audience. They're doing it for the current generation, because there's got to be a bit of like, what we do here is like, come on, this is cool. This is good music. Mm-hmm. Get into this. But also like, kind of honoring the fact that, without this artist, there would be no us type thing.
Is it always, though? I can't think of a direct example in my head. Is it always it trying to look cool? Or maybe they think it's cool. What was that makes me wonder, what was the original version of Tainted Love like? And you and I sitting here being like, yeah, love Tainted Love. Is there somebody out there, maybe even watching this, like, they don't even know what the real Tainted Love was like? You know what I mean? Like, we are those people for that song.
Yeah. I'm not okay. So one I really love is Santa Esmeralda. I think this goes along really well to what you're saying, because I'm not really sure what their intention was. They covered a Nina Simone track, and like, Nina can do no wrong, but they really, this is another one where they kind of took this song, wasn't theirs, and slapped their own stamp on it. Like really took ownership to the next level. If anything, you want to give them writing credits on top of the song, because they've just done something wholly unique with it and wild. Going back to our cool soundtracks, you made a great point that some of the coolest soundtracks are put together by not so cool individuals. We'll go to Kill Bill, following in the footsteps of not directly from Pulp Fiction, but a few years later, after Jackie Brown, even he'd experimented with like R&B and Motown and stuff like that. And then he put together this super eclectic soundtrack of weird Japanese pop and rock, and a couple of strange covers, and a whole lot of RZA sampling and orchestration. But one stood out to me, and it's a song that I'm surprised I never turn off, despite it being like a grandiose epic, almost 11 minutes in length, which is shocking, because I think the original is maybe 3 or 4 minutes long. But they've managed to stretch out this small, quiet little Nina Simone song into this huge, sprawling, like Southwestern kind of like salsa epic, complete with massive breakdowns and huge like changes in genre throughout the song. These like really kind of dramatic vocals. They've like really taken everything about the song and kind of blown it out of proportion, to the point where they're like breaking into interludes and extended mixes that are almost the original music. They for a period of time in the song, I think 4 or 5 minutes, are just making their own music before kind of pulling back in a refrain sort of way to remind you that, oh yes, yeah, we're listening to a cover song, because this is like, flamenco and rock driven and really nothing to do with the original song. You can hear the strings there basically are the only thing carrying the song, between the front and the back. But it is incredible. Yeah, again, I hate disparaging the original artist when I like respect them so much, but this is just, it's magnificent. It's really, truly cool that they've taken that music and it's so weird to imagine that they could hear this sound when they're listening to that original song.
This is one of the few songs that I can think of, and I wouldn't have been able to name it until we just looked at it. Didn't even know it was over 10 minutes long. This is a song that I've listened to over and over again, and I would never have guessed it was over 10 minutes. It's one of those songs that's right? Like you enjoy it the whole time. Like, oh, it's over 10 minutes. Play it again. Yes. Yeah, I can't believe how many times I'm like, oh shit. Oh, there goes an hour of my day. I've just played this song twice, and it's 5 o'clock. Yeah, no, that's a great one. I don't know what to say as far as that song is concerned. It's their song now. As I don't even think of Nina Simone when I listen to it. There's a couple other bands that have done that lately too.
Deftones did that with Duran Duran. You pointed out an excellent Primus song, picking up on like a deep Police cut that you don't think about these songs, and then one or two bands here or there can just like extrapolate in a way that's, oh, okay. I think about this song differently. Number one, I'm enjoying the song now where I may not have before. Or number two, oh, okay. Like I can see exactly where your influences come from now, and kind of gives you the appreciation of the older music in a different way. I love Duran Duran, but there's a lot of that that's, it's like any product of the 80s, and their bridge was like firmly between pop and boy band and new wave. So there's a little bit more space for my taste to kind of get lost there. I definitely enjoy the singles, but I would never find myself listening to Duran Duran deep cuts like I would maybe with the Police. So listening to them do these takes, this is probably this is great. This lends itself well to that point, because this is totally taking the mood, the vibe, the atmosphere of a song, and shaking it up and looking at the contents and maybe rearranging it in a way that I could never have possibly imagined when listening to the original song. So I'm always fascinated when when she sings this.
You don't think this goes with the original at all?
Oh, I do. But when I first heard it, I suppose what I'm saying is when I first heard it, it took me a full minute or two before I realized what the lyrics were she's singing. And I was like,
I think this goes perfectly. Looks like they're playing it.
The mood is definitely on point. Like, you could not get any more kind of creepy and foreboding. And just, she sounds pure evil in this, which Tori was always good at, like throwing her emotions and weight behind some really dark content. But this one truly jarred me, and it did take a couple minutes, and I thought something's amiss, because I'm listening to the song unaware that it was a cover, listening to the lyrics go by very, very slowly, and oh no, I've heard this before.
I just put the video to 0.25 speed.
Oh yeah, this is Slayer playing one of their famous Raining Blood encores, which are fucking fantastic in their own right. So if you're into Tori Amos, go check out Slayer. If you're into Slayer, check out Tori Amos. But they definitely the vibe is totally different.
Yeah,
it's still terrifying on both sides, but terrifying kind of in their own way.
Yeah, especially played together. It's like one of those horror movies when it's just like it's just, can you hear me, Kurt? Kurt cannot hear me at the moment. We are going to be right back after this quick commercial break. All right, we're back.
Hell yeah. Sounded good.
As I was saying at the beginning of the episode, we're doing this from different sides of the country, so little things like that, I believe, are for that reason.
Yes. No, it's just part of the growing pains and part of the fun. Really need to do all kinds of cool new stuff now, like transitions and intermissions and shit. So
yeah. So back to covers and not...
Yes, please.
No audio. I don't know if I heard the original before this one.
I definitely did not. This, to me, was the original until I heard the original. And then, I mean, not really totally different, like not wildly different than the original, just... It's Eddie Van Halen just doing his own thing on top of it. I mean, you got David, which is great because he's a showman.
It's different, and I think it's different enough. Like this part, like when the Kinks play it, it sounds like the Van Halen playing it with their amps broken, or they ran out of batteries or something.
Yeah, Well, there's a lot. I mean, I feel like there's a lot to unpack when you talk about Van Halen in general. Like the front man is such a huge part of it, and I feel it's so strange sometimes. That's what gets all the talk, because Eddie himself was like, he's a crazy showman on the guitar. You know, he added such crazy flair, such flamboyance to the instrument and to the music he played. But yeah, they get the kind of like the vaudeville attention that David Lee Roth kind of brought upon them and whatnot. And then obviously Van Hagar in a totally different direction. But yeah, no, this was flair to the maximum.
Yes. So what I'm interested to hear that you mentioned was the Duran Duran cover.
Yeah. Deftones did a cover of a Duran Duran song that I knew the song was a cover right away. So this was a different kind of instance. I knew that Deftones were doing a cover. I did not know who it was when I listened to the song at first. So I heard it on a B-Sides or Rarities compilation. Oh, there it is. Yeah, excellent. Knew that it was a cover, but did not know the band. And I was kind of challenged and perplexed to the point that I listened to it a few times and then was still super shook when I actually found out what band it was, because this is not a vibe. It's not the atmosphere. It's not the ambience. It's not really any of the delivery I would have associated with Duran Duran. Yeah, still strangely, kind of apropos, just because of, you know, that kind of weird, dark kind of 80s, just unsettling vibe to it. And hearing the Duran Duran song, it really doesn't do justice for me anymore. They kind of take this to a new level. They pardon me, they nail the ambience. They nail that atmosphere. They kind of give this like this crazy, weird, ominous, dark tone that you kind of can't like turn away from. Chino's vocals, I know that they're super divisive to a lot of people, but here I think they're kind of like on display in their best form, and that's like almost as an instrument all in itself. I don't really care about the lyrics. I care about hearing his voice cut in and sliced with the music. I think they've created something that wasn't there, or that maybe they imagined was there, and extrapolated it to the point where, oh, okay, now this is the vibe. This is how I'm supposed to feel when hearing this song. And it's kind of uneasy and dark.
So when you're talking about bands that do covers because they must have a major appreciation for the band, Deftones, I find it very interesting them to appreciate Duran Duran. That's kind of cool. But speaking of 80s and covers and dark, you and I were talking before about, you know, if we should play the covered alone, or if we should play, you know, or if we do it before or after type of thing. One I think that we should do before for sure is this. We should play the original, which I don't think many people are going to know. I don't think. This is Me by Gary Newman from The Pleasure Principle.
Yep. Most well known for Cars. Everybody knows Cars. That was Gary Newman.
Yeah.
Also had a strange cover itself. I think Fear Factory somehow. I think that was probably Fear Factory's like leap up in metal. They probably wouldn't have been anywhere near as popular as they were if they had not covered Cars. It's one of those covers that works. I think Gary Newman actually contributed original vocals to that, so he re-recorded his vocals for Cars for Fear Factory. That's a cover for another day, though.
Mm-hmm. So this song, I'm going to do the very beginning again. Okay. And then the so cover, cool. The first time I ever heard this was in a Pringles commercial.
This is sampling gone right, like 100% over the top. How could this be so perfect? Almost like, I love Gary Newman, mad respect, but fuck the original.
Yeah.
When I hear that, I want to bounce to it. You know, I want to hear that driving, thumping like house behind it. Yeah. The original is just, it's a good song, but it just seems, I don't want to say lame duck. It's boring. It's boring compared to this.
Yeah, it sounds like a stem of this song.
It does, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it's that's one of those covers that almost works the other way. It's like, oh, I can take a little bit of this song, maybe draw it out into a whole song. No, that was, no, this jungle shit is just the product of like some mad scientists working their goods on a wicked hook, making it just infinitely better than it was.
They don't even get to the last note, I don't think.
No, they don't need to.
So you know the song that was on the tip of my tongue for covers.
Yeah, what was it? Did you remember it?
Yep. I believe you might have shown this to me. You thought you were thinking you might have thought what it was when I said that, but no, here
No. Oh. Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about Jay Gordon Orgy, but thank you, because they exposed me to New Order. Got me all the way back down the grapevine into Joy Division and whatnot, and then realized my tastes were a little better suited for New Order. So rest in peace, Ian Curtis. But yeah, no, Peter Hook. Peter Hook is the genius here. So yes, Orgy got me into New Order. So this is a great example of new metal doing something positive for the world.
Mm-hmm. I think you might have shown this to me on our first ever radio show with the grade 8 announcements.
Oh yeah. I was just about to say, I remember listening to this with you over and over and over again at the tender age of like 12 or 13. So yeah. And this is a good cover. Again, nothing against Orgy otherwise. Even they had a couple good songs, but they're maybe not for me. This was an excellent cover, and they did a good job kind of shoving this down the throats of some kids who probably needed to get some musical knowledge and history. So props to them. Yeah, and it fitted their aesthetic perfectly.
Yeah, I wonder what music I would have listened to if it wasn't for this song. Because as you said, it totally got me into I thought that I liked this much more than the original. Then I listened to the original a couple more times, and I was like, oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah, this is... I appreciate what they were doing there, but it's almost a little too aggro. This is a song where it's almost that meek kind of, victim kind of main character protagonist is what you really want to kind of empathize with. I love that they did kind of an aggro in-your-face cover of it, but something that was special about Blue Monday was almost like that okay, I can connect with the hurt. This is a hurt that I felt before or do feel. So it's kind of nice to have that minimalist kind of that dour original.
Why didn't Too Aggro come up when we were talking about Limp Bizkit and Faith?
It's hard for me to say that I enjoy the original Wham song. So if you want my honest opinion,
that makes perfect sense right there.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd enjoy listening to Faith by Wham or George Michael on its own. If it comes on the radio, I might shake my hips and I definitely dance and sing to it at a wedding. But as far as putting it on to get me in a mood, no, I'm sorry. I need that Westmoreland guitar. Yeah,
and you'll probably only dance it with to the Wham song at a wedding because it's going to remind you of Limp Bizkit.
That's true, actually. Yeah, I'd complain about the DJ because he wasn't playing the Limp Bizkit version.
Yeah. We have Whiskey in the Jar. Thin Lizzy.
This is an interesting one. Yeah, so Thin Lizzy, this one's hard to attribute to anyone other than Thin Lizzy. I guess it's an old Irish folk song. And I don't want to step on any toes. Irish folk, big deal. So the fact that Thin Lizzy covered something that was more traditional and Gaelic, that's pretty cool in its own. But this song has kind of taken on a life of its own a couple times. And I think, unfortunately, Thin Lizzy even gets buried behind the influence of their own music. This is an interesting one because, I think Thin Lizzy in general, the bands they influenced and the covers they've left behind with other bands has actually kind of buried their entire history. Thin Lizzy with any kind of rock or metal snob, they'll tell you Phil Lynott was so important just to the development of metal music in general. But this is a song that Metallica kind of blasted on the radio and really took the shine off the original, or the Thin Lizzy version rather.
So who is the original?
I'm not really sure. I've looked around a couple times, and honestly, the best representation in credits that I've seen is literally traditional Irish folk song.
Huh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
So it's one of those tracks. I think, yeah, sort of like Ram Jam Black Betty Ram Jam. Right? There is an original, and I think it came from like a folk song, but finding I think a credit for that. Probably, unfortunately, like steeped in some really racist, like prison shit. Unfortunately, I think a lot of these folk songs are born out of like slave labor and stuff from prison systems back in the day. So,
what about a song that Lenny Kravitz did?
Yes, as two Canadian young lads here, we at least for myself, I feel a little bit guilty, but not so guilty in enjoying this because, if you consider all the things we've talked about that make a cover song cool, I think this one probably covers them all. Original message still there verbatim, so you haven't lost that. The sound has been amped up. It's been tinkered and toyed with, so you don't lose any of the original music, but it's just a bit better. It's done better. Also, if anything, like they probably took the message to another level. It's nice actually having kind of an American artist from that period in time address this issue, and it probably brought the social issue back to the top, which I respect because it's hard, especially with like an artist like Lenny Kravitz. You're throwing so much, like we talked about, flair and flamboyancy on there that you might think this is a not so serious cover, but I think he genuinely had all the interest in keeping the original intended message, but also adding like his super dramatic kind of own stroke to it.
I think he's a pretty serious guitar player.
Oh yeah. No, he's beyond talented, and I think he doesn't get enough respect just because he's got some mainstream airplay that probably hit the Billboard a little too hard. People dismissed him as more pop than rock. He is definitely rock and roll, though.
What was bigger, this song or Fly Away? I actually don't know.
Oof.
I kind of think Fly Away was, which adds
one,
to,
yeah.
which I think would only add to the pop thing, the pop point you made.
I think Fly Away was bigger. I think it was definitely the bigger single. This had the benefit to being attached to some big film projects. They slapped this one all over Austin Powers 2, I think it was. So it definitely got that big boost. It was on a soundtrack that was like led by Madonna and had Quincy Jones and all that stuff on it. So man, he was playing in a serious sandbox with some like artists already. But yeah, I think Fly Away, you're right, was definitely the bigger one. And I think people, kind of hear a couple of those songs, like maybe dismiss them as pop, but you shouldn't have. The guitar is just fucking awesome in all of them. Like really, really awesome.
And just to make it clear, when I say he's a pretty serious guitar player, I don't necessarily know how good he is, but I know he loves it, and that's what I also mean. Oh, sorry, that's the point I want to make about the artist loving the song or just loving the groove, whatever. So I could see him, kind of digging this, but I don't know for sure though. I don't know. I'm kind of just hoping on my end.
I've spent some time with Lenny Kravitz, and I think he's kind of a genuine student of music. So, whether it be just adoring the guitar to the point where he's got to do what he's got to do, or actually, enjoying bands like the Guess Who and kind of what they brought to the table in terms of changing rock and roll through guitar-driven music. I think he's definitely the real deal. He's really good at what he does, and he takes it just seriously enough. But I think he also doesn't take himself so seriously that it's self-indulgent.
Yeah. Well, I think he takes himself seriously enough that when that picture got taken front row, he didn't like that very much.
I'm surprised he didn't. Fuck, if that was me, I'd be like, you can post that wherever you want. Jesus Christ. But yeah, maybe you're right. I never thought about that. Maybe he's so serious as a musician. He's like, okay, yeah, like I want none of that. But yeah, that's definitely not something you should be ashamed of. So, but apparently he just really wants people to hear him play guitar. So and think about nothing else.
Is Lenny Kravitz cool?
I think he's kind of cool. I saw him live once and it kind of bummed me out because he was either way too stoned or just didn't give a shit that night.
But if you have,
which I think is actually maybe kind of cool in its own awful way.
Okay,
it's too cool to care.
Well, okay. I mean, is he cool in the sense that like when you've gone to see Slayer or Lamb of God, you've been like, yeah, I'm cool, right? So if you're in a group of people and they're like, what are your favorite bands? Slayer, Motorhead, Lamb of God, Led Zeppelin, Lenny Kravitz. Is that so? You're laughing. So
yeah. I mean, it's definitely cool in a certain demographic. I don't know if I should go any further than that. There are definitely people that will clamor for Lenny Kravitz and are probably super stoked to hear that name dropped, but probably much unlike the same people where I could tell I'm going to see a Slayer concert. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm going to see Lamb of God. Oh, that's cool. Sabbath. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm going to see Kravitz tonight. And probably half of them would be like, okay.
Who?
Because they probably just know his pop songs.
Yeah, well, exactly. So speaking of both sides of the spectrum, are the Bee Gees cool?
Oh, hell no.
No. What about the
No.
What about the Foo Fighters? Are they cool?
Foo Fighters are literally the exact opposite. Foo Fighters are like so cool they can almost do no wrong. It doesn't matter how commercialized they get, how many places they appear, how many weird things they do, how many fucking the heroin breaks Taylor Hawkins takes. They remain just like super cool for like all ages.
So what do you think of this? The Bee Gees covering. Sorry, for the Foo Fighters covering the Bee Gees.
I'm a little biased because this is actually the only Bee Gees song I've enjoyed. This is the one that makes me think, oh, this is good music, where I kind of feel that way about no other Bee Gees track. But I like their version even more. I'm not a Foo Fighters fan by any means, but all credit where credit's due. They made something that was probably the pinnacle of a band that has debatable coolness, and they put their own cool on it. So I think they make the Bee Gees retroactively cooler just by covering the shit, which I think very few other bands can do. But I think when like the Foo Fighters, who are so big, so popular, and so weirdly consummately cool in all phases of entertainment, when they cover your song and like do so with such sincerity and aplomb, I think they almost make the Bee Gees look cooler.
See, I almost see the Foo Fighters. I do think they're cool, but it doesn't matter what I think. They're almost like a certified cool. Like,
Yep.
It's almost like in my head, I'm thinking that they didn't even have to ask permission for this. It's the Foo Fighters, the Bee Gees. They'll think it's cool. Yeah. So just whatever, guys. Just you guys cool.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. They're just like round the clock cool. Yeah. The music is cool. A lot of the music stands the test of time. You're never going to tell anyone that Everlong is not a good song. And then you have like Dave Grohl, who's got this like, this cult of personality that's even beyond just like him being likable and him kind of doing everything right. He's got like the background to back it up. If anybody like, wants to go front with him, go toe to toe, like look at his credentials. The guy's played with like metal bands, like clamor for him to be on their albums, to do session work. The guy literally probably responsible for Nirvana staying together as long as they did. And Nirvana is like that weird cool, even though they shouldn't be. But yeah, no, he's done almost everything right in his career, I think, and that only serves him better each day. Handling Courtney Love with the patience that he has over the years, picking the right metal artists to do that, like session musician work with. You don't hear about him until a couple years later when that metal band was like, oh yeah, we didn't have a drummer at the time, so Dave Grohl came in and did it like gratis and without credit, and you're like, oh, holy shit, okay. And then being able to put together side projects like Probot and stuff like that, where like just the amount of collaborations shows you like who he's hanging out with and who thinks he's cool. Yeah, you're right. They're certified cool, man. I don't think they can be uncool. They'd have to fuck up big time. Like I said, no matter how many heroin breaks they want to take, they're still just totally unfazed, just fucking forward cool.
When the Foo Fighters were in Toronto, like on the side of the stage was like Dave Grohl's mom and Geddy Lee's mom. It was either at a Foo Fighters show or at a Rush show, but it was both their moms like hanging out back side stage watching it all go down.
How cool is that? Like that's that's another level of cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
When people are talking about your family being there, like damn, like okay, that's who the cool gene came from. Okay, yeah, no, that's another level. That's ingrained cool.
Yeah, I know. They had like both of them up on the big screen. The whole crowd didn't even have to say it. They don't think who they were, and the whole crowd's just going nuts.
Oh man, yeah, and those are no small crowds either. They play like the Rogers Center, the Sky Dome for all you old people like me out there. Yeah,
I will always call it the Sky Dome.
It always will be. But yeah, they can fill that room, 50,000 people any day, right? 30 years, close to 30 years after their inception. Yeah, it's wild. It is wild. And they still make popular music too, which is neat. It surprises me, as I guess this is one of the benefits of not really being a Foo Fighters fan, is I'm actually still surprised that, every now and then, like the huge spans in time that's gone by, 25 years, and I can still pinpoint like the early Foo Fighters singles. They still get radio play and commercial play in the day where it's hard for me anyways to see TV commercials and hear shit on rock radio. I feel like, the earlier stuff gets just as much, if not more played than the later stuff. And the later stuff deserves actually to be there right with it, whether it be the kind of the mid-era stuff or the stuff in the last 4 or 5 years. They make music that it's got their sound anyhow. So it's definably cool just by being a Foo Fighters song now. But they still make really hooky, kind of engaging rock. And as much as, to my chagrin, I might try to fight it sometimes because it's just, there's something about it that seems a little too, I don't know, overproduced and manufactured for commercialization. It's still really kind of good rock music. And it makes me kind of shut my mouth.
I don't know how far into it or whatever this is, but this is apparently a clip of Geddy Lee's mom and Dave Grohl's mom side stage
amazing
at a show. So, what about that? How cool do you think that is? Breaking your leg on stage and then showing up like 3 hours later and then keep playing. And then for the rest of the shows, you sit up there with a throne made out of guitars and stuff just to keep playing instead of canceling.
That's super cool. And without even, kind of joking about it, it's super cool because as a rap music fan, there's just, I've been put through the ringer on inexcusable bullshit. People not showing up to shows, showing up late, not even just singing or doing their part, just basically showing up for face value, and like really kind of almost ruining their career in the process of doing so. I've seen a lot of musicians lose credibility for showing up when they shouldn't, and conversely, I've lost a lot of respect for musicians after finding out what they didn't show up for. So the fact that he not only came out and finished the fucking show, but continued and found a way to put on a good show in his current state is super fucking cool. And like, that's without joking or mockery, really, really dope. I respect the hell out of him for that. And I respect the hell out of him for, I think that was the tour where I started to slowly come around on them, because I saw how they were treating their fans, bringing them up, letting them sing, letting them play guitar, doing all that shit, and really having a good time with it. And it really changes like the whole perspective of a band whose music you may still not be able to get into entirely, like I'm not, but just seeing that kind of engagement is like, oh, okay, this is cool. Yeah.
Because that reminds me of when you and I went to go see Lauryn Hill.
Oh God, yes, yeah. This is exactly the opposite of Foo Fighters cool.
I have a feeling if Lauryn Hill broke her leg at the show we were at, she wouldn't have come back.
No, I think she probably would have tried to sue the first 10 rows in the audience too, because she's that type of person. Yeah. Fuck her.
Yeah.
Even though she does a sweet cover of Killing Me Softly, she made that song her own too. Unfortunately, Roberta Flack has probably just a footnote and a credit on what people think is a Fuji song now. But yep. Ms. Lauryn Hill, as she likes to be called. She put on, I'll call it a show for us. It wasn't the show we came to see. It wasn't a show we stayed to see either. But it was a show. It was a temper tantrum wrapped in the appearance of artistry. Yeah. It's unfortunate. She's so talented and she can't get out of her own fucking way.
This is a song for sure. I can't even think of the sound of the cover.
And it's honestly, it's not worth it. I'm sorry, Roberta. The song it begins and ends with the Fugees. She so owns this song. And this is the frustrating part about Lauryn Hill is you keep putting up with her bullshit. I kept buying tickets to her shows, putting up with her temper tantrums and not showing up or showing up later, just like abusing her bandmates on stage just because you really just come to see and hear her sing like this or just parts of this. You go to hear her voice just for moments and you kind of put up with the garbage because it's so goddamn good. Voice is so goddamn good.
Did you see the comment in chat there? They ask, what would you two agree is the best recording of a song? And that goes really nicely with what you were just saying about the talent and the voice.
Yeah,
actually, you know what? Let me make it more specific. Instead of just thinking of, the best recording of a song in general, can you think of a song, speak of just where the recording live was better than the original? Same band. Okay, this will be a good way to wrap this up because we've been going for just about an hour here. So instead of covering a band that just its own way when they do it live is better than the album.
I have to go with, this is probably an obscure one, but you'll know this to me. Iggy Pop and the Stooges. Iggy Pop plays I Want to Be Your Dog. And it's been kind of referenced throughout pop culture here and there over the last 30 years. Iggy Pop does a live version of I Want to Be Your Dog off that vaunted Stooges album from the 60s. That is punk rock, and it's weird to go back. I think you pointed this out to me very astutely. When we listened to the original studio version, it doesn't sound very punk rock, despite the Stooges being kind of like the progenitors for that kind of, that genre of music. They were right there, and they helped kind of shape it and form it. But there's something about the live version, almost any live version of that song, where even for the rough production, I know this is kind of like kind of skirting the edges of the question there because it may not be per se the best recording of it. It's the best recorded version of that song.
Okay,
is a couple of the live ones. So whereas this like the Fugees, the production and the talent here are immaculate and blow like early 50s originals out of the water. Just for like the oral pleasance of it, this is sonically super pleasing. Even if you don't like the music, having this on the background is kind of soothing. It's nice. There's nothing you can really kind of hate about it. On the other end, Iggy Pop needs that live energy, like that live energy that he adds to I Want to Be Your Dog that's invariably punk rock. That's what I think they probably intended to do in the studio, but they probably couldn't get that vibe.
Another question in chat here. What really popular song do you dislike?
Where to begin? May I? Okay, so I'm going to throw this out there. We may get into news segments in the future and whatnot, but I saw the 10th anniversary of one of my favorite articles of all time. So on this date in December 2011, a Chicago high school had a fundraiser where basically they said, we are going to keep playing Justin Bieber's Baby over and over through the PA until you guys donate enough to charity for us to stop it. So over the course of, I think, 70 hours, a group of junior high students had amassed thousands of dollars in charitable donations to stop the playing of Justin Bieber's Baby. And I only mention this song not because that story is fucking awesome and I love it, but I've known some grown men in my life who at the time were really into that. And it shook me. It shook me a little bit. Oh, I hate that song. But there are many more like it.
Yeah. I cannot answer that question right now just because I know there's a really good one. And I can't think of it off the top of my head. Probably actually, you know what? What really popular song? Probably any of those Fortnite dance songs. Every single one I think is I think they only use popular songs now. All of them. annoying.
There's a lot of pop and trap, and I didn't mean to shit on Justin Bieber for anyone who's a fan. I know like his fans are weird, and they're out there and they're everywhere. It's crazy. Like you saw the Tim Biebs auctions and stuff like that. Anyways, yeah, I don't actually have a strong opinion of him. Otherwise, I just try to stay out of that realm. It's not for me. So, whatever. I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to have an opinion. But that song was so everywhere that I had to say, like, I do not like this. It's so popular.
That question made me think about popular songs that I dislike, because when I say the Fortnite songs, I'm thinking of Travis Scott, but I don't even know what Travis Scott sounds like because I've disliked it so much that I didn't even bother researching it.
Yeah, that's that is popularity to a different level. We talked about that in one of our early shows. Just the marketing behind it. Like the guy's branded himself with some of the biggest corporate images in the world, and McDonald's and Nike and stuff like that. So he sells himself as such. But he's also kind of like the impetus for what we have is SoundCloud and trap rap now. And he was so big right out of the gates. It's difficult to kind of like separate him and kind of see where his influence came from. He was like super popular, like almost instantly. But he really did like have a lot to do with that kind of mumblecore rap, the SoundCloud and the trap, the little, kind of hi-hatty snare music.
So when I say I haven't looked into it, it's because it's always been there. I feel like I've heard enough of it. I never wanted to put it on. Every time I hear it, I don't like it. So why am I going to look at it type thing? We'll kind of end on this note. Is there an artist that you can think of that was always shoved in your face, super popular, like, oh, it's so annoying, stop. Then when you're like, you kind of found out later, oh, wait, I do like this. That one song is so annoying all over the radio. Why don't they play their good shit? Do you have anyone like that?
Yeah, Rolling Stones. And this is kind of a weird answer because they're so big. Yeah, but Rolling Stones, there's a couple songs that to this day I still don't like. And I'm probably the odd one out here who doesn't like Sympathy for the Devil. But man, it was after hearing them for like a decade from parents and friends and stuff like that. And then hearing Miss You, I don't know how that song escaped me. It was so funky and groovy and just unlike the kind of, big bombastic rock that I'd heard from a couple of the singles that, it made me get into the Stones and look deeper in the catalog. And there's a lot of shit I like. I mean, their greatest hits albums are so storied that I can honestly tell you, like, 40 licks, there's 20 songs I hate and 20 songs I love. So, but this song it's like honky tonk, it's blues, it's still rock and roll, but it's got a vibe that is unlike anything else. It's probably a good progenitor for a lot of like 90s pop music too, I'd say. Speaking
of groovy and funky, do you know who was on stage playing this with the Rolling Stones in Toronto?
I do know this, and this is a pop artist I absolutely fucking love. Actually, he'd be a great addition to this because I couldn't stand NSYNC. There's absolutely nothing about NSYNC to this day I enjoy. But the solo career of Mr. Justin Timberlake, I adore. I absolutely adore. Everything after that first album, Future Sex Love Sounds, maybe I'd probably give a little too much credit to JT because that was a Timbaland album in and out. But I love Justin Timberlake, and he got bottled during this performance, didn't he?
Yeah, I was about to ask you. You said you didn't like his first album. I think that's all he was on when the SARS stock thing happened. I think that was in 2003.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right.
If you were there,
that was years before.
If you were there, do you think you would have been one of the throwers?
No. And for a totally different reason. I may not have been happy about it, but I don't throw shit on stage. I fucking hate people who do that. So don't throw shit at concerts, people. Come on. What are you thinking? Anyway.
Just to give a bit of context, this was in Canada. So when Kurt said they were throwing bottles at him, it was just like plastic water bottles. So no one was trying to kill the guy. I don't think they would have thrown glass
some rocks in those bottles, but yeah.
Maybe I'm giving Canada too much credit, but I feel like if there was glass bottles at the concert, I don't think they would have thrown them at Justin Timberlake at that show. I hope not.
A good Canadian artist made one of those forever headlines, though. I think that's why they don't do big festivals or metal festivals in a certain area of Portugal anymore. Nickelback had the unfortunate fate of opening for Slipknot, and in true Portuguese fashion, they were selling whole bottles of wine to the crowd. So I think that was a rather infamous story of Nickelback being in the wrong place at the fucking wrong time. Some people got hurt.
Yeah, it sounds like people. You ever seen Nickelback live?
Slipknot fans. I have not, and I don't think I ever will.
If you were going to see a band you loved and you found out that Nickelback was your opener, would you be disappointed, or like, it's be interesting to finally see what this is all about?
Oh, you put me on the spot here. Yeah, I'd be disappointed. God damn it. I would be. I'd judge. I would judge. I don't care if it was a promoter or a record label forcing this shit down that band's throat. I'd say to the band I went to see, step in and do something about this, you know? Spare us, please. I get it. It's nice to know you can show up late to a show or grab some beers or something, but like still in the background, I'd be disappointed, man. I hate to say it. Sorry, Chad.
Nickelback is, we're talking about things that we think are cool because we almost think we have to, Nickelback's almost something I hated because I thought I had to hate them. I don't think I ever really hated Nickelback. At one time, I think I said I did, but just because everybody else did, I think, okay, this is what we have to do now.
This one, I can genuinely say, yeah, they definitely got an undeserved amount of hate, but with the benefit of hindsight and time passing and whatnot, I went back and revisited them to see if I do truly hate them as much as pop culture would have me believe, and I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on that note,
enjoy their music.
This was the Key Dynamics podcast. What are we coming back with next, Kurt? Do we have a topic lined up for our next podcast?
Oh boy, yes. Geez. Oh yes. Monday, likely. Christmas episode. Also, I would love to hear your takes on the best music of the year. Since we are at that time, everybody's doing lists and stuff like that. We got to do our own list, so I'd love to throw in my top albums of 2021, and hopefully if there's some music there you haven't heard, you'll check it out, because there's some good stuff this year. Yeah.
What was that song we were talking about? We started this show, we were listening to Limp Bizkit, Faith, we were talking about Wham. Yep. Next will be our Christmas show, so we're going to finish off on Wham, Last Christmas.
Oh boy.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us. We will be back with you on Monday evening at... What time are we going to decide for Monday?
Say 10 Eastern?
10 Eastern. We'll be here at 10 Eastern time. And look that up on Google to find out whatever that is, your time, for the Key Dynamics Christmas episode. Even I'm interested to see what that's going to be like.
Oh, it's going to be torture.
Oh, God. Speaking of torture, we're leaving you out on Wham. We'll see you on Monday, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.